Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is now preparing for his largest purge of names off the state's voter rolls. In all, more than 477,000 voters are being targeted. Officially, they're referred to as inactive. This is based on not voting in both the 2022 and the 2024 general election. The Secretary of State's office says that it sent notices out, and those voters now have 40 days to respond. In a statement sent out Thursday, Secretary Raffensperger says Georgia's voter rolls are the cleanest in the nation thanks to the diligent partnerships we've made to secure our elections. Clean voter rolls mean clean elections. My promise to Georgia voters is elections that are free, fair, and fast, and we're doing just that. While the Secretary of State says this move is to improve election integrity, it's also raising concerns about who may be silenced unintentionally or perhaps intentionally. Joining us now is Lauren Groh-Wargo. She's the CEO of Fair Fight Action and former campaign manager for Stacey Abrams' 2018 run for governor. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Cheryl. Great to be here.
So what concerns you most about the process that's going on in our state now?
This is a very historic time. We are seeing an unprecedented number of voters being moved to a cancellation process, about 6% of the voter rolls, 500,000 Georgians. Unfortunately, this appears to be a political play by our Secretary of State as part of the national kind of MAGA reform on our elections that seems very partisan. We've done a deep analysis of the list. The list is disproportionately partisan Democrats. It's disproportionately Black voters in Georgia. And there are portions of the list, how they seem to have come up with this. We don't have full transparency on the data and how they came up with this that raise concerns. So let me give you a little bit on that, and I can tell voters what to do, because this week they're going to start to get, as you said in the lead, voters are going to start to get those letters in the mail.
Right.
So what folks need to do, if they get a letter in the mail, they need to immediately return the mail, or they need to contact their county board of elections. Fairfight.com/stopthepurge has information. You can also go to the Georgia Secretary of State page. But here's the deal. As you know, I know you guys have covered this, we have one of the worst postal crises happening in our state. And this has been going on for probably about a year, more than a year at this point. Mm-hmm. And so a portion of this 500,000 list are people who have apparently had returned mail or no contact with the elections infrastructure in Georgia. That is a big problem for me because we have some of the worst mail delivery in the country. I think in May of this year, we were ranked the second worst state for postal delivery in the country. Mm-hmm. Before the postal deliveries, unreturned mail was already viewed as not a reliable way to remove voters. So we're seeing voters potentially punished for not having mail returned. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, Cheryl, but I get a ton of mail, a ton of junk mail. I am not looking at all my mail. I'm not responding to all my mail.
Sure,
I know that with the postal issues, I've had a whole bunch of mail issues. So a good 100,000 or so of these voters may be caught in a mail issue, very much Georgia residents. We don't know.
And on that point,
and there's all these data issues going on, so voters need to really watch out for their mail now and contact their county.
Sure, that's an important point because as you're talking, I'm thinking about the people most at risk for falling through the cracks. As you said, young minority and mobile voters. Think about maybe students, renters, military families who maybe skip a cycle because they're moving locations, and that a few years can go pretty quickly. Is there a way to purge voter rolls without risking disenfranchising, particularly those groups of people?
To your point of military voters, there's over 2,000 military addresses in this purge we're particularly concerned about, as well as these 200,000 unreturned mail or no contact. But to your point, look, list maintenance is normal. We know that people die in our state. We know that people move in our state. Counties do list maintenance all the time. Counties are kind of in a constant looking at their list maintenance. There are federal rules around this. The National Voter Registration Act prevents purges from happening close to an election. There are federal rules meant to protect our freedom to vote that we think this purge might be in violation of. That said, I don't know yet. There's a lot of analysis still going on. So at the end of the day, yes, there are established list maintenance practices that are not disenfranchising. We think probably a portion of the list is compliant. The issue is 500,000 voters in a time in Georgia where we're seeing historic voter turnout and growth in the state, this is very, very concerning. To your point on mobile voters, young voters, voters who might be taking care of family members, voters who might not be checking their mail. There's a lot of data issues we see here. So we want voters to be vigilant. Don't be afraid. Go online, contact your local county. If you live in Fulton County, call up your Fulton County DOE. You can go to verify.com/stopthepurge. You can also Google the Georgia Secretary of State. Get in contact. If you have friends or family who received this letter, return the letter. And obviously, you can always reach out to Fair Fight. You can DM us on social media, and we can get you those resources. We do not want 500,000 voters purged off the rolls.
Being
and
proactive,
us and our allies are really doing a deep look at this list to figure out if there's any advocacy to help shut it down.
Yeah, you mentioned we're talking about 477,000 potential voters in a state where the elections are increasingly smaller and smaller margins. You mentioned that you felt like it feels partisan, and this is a part of our government that's not supposed to be that way. We've heard a lot about election integrity, particularly after the 2020 election. What impact do you see this process having on next year's midterms?
Look, the Secretary of State and his folks are a very political team. And the way this purge reads, it reads as part of the MAGA national strategy. It reads part of Marjorie Taylor Greene's effort to redraw all the congressional districts to kick out any non-citizens. It reads like the National SAVE Act. There are a series of local, federal, and state initiatives happening right now in this country by the governing majority, that is Republicans, to reshape elections to prioritize Republican-leaning voters. Unfortunately, that appears to be part of the Secretary of State's mission coming up into a very big race next year. We have open constitutional offices, an open governor's race. We understand Brad Raffensperger, our Secretary of State, isn't going to run again, is looking to run for higher office. Folks in his office, there's speculation that folks in his office might be running for higher office. And so you cannot take the politics out of this moment. To your point on quote unquote election integrity, this language around clean voter rolls dates back to Jim Crow on who belongs and who doesn't belong. Look, there is valid ways to do list maintenance. People die, people move, yes. What we're talking about, we have never seen a voter purge this big. There's never been even any sort of attempt. Going back years, we've been purging. Georgia has been purging hundreds of thousands of voters every cycle.
Yeah,
we've had
this
historically
issue,
high voter turnout. It doesn't make sense that we're at a point that you would need to purge 500,000 voters. You cannot take it out of the political context.
Lauren, this has been an issue that's been
local initiatives.
Sure, an issue that will continue to be a big point of conversation. Appreciate the time. Thanks, Lauren Groh-Wargo, and we'll keep following it for you.